Hi, class. My name is Rob Santana, and today we'll be talking about the space debris problem. So, first, let's talk about a few basics about space debris. So, space debris is defined as any object around Earth that does not serve a useful purpose. We'll go more in depth about that in a minute, but first, the location we're talking about is a region of Earth, a region of space called low Earth orbit, which is above Earth's atmosphere but below an altitude of 2,000 kilometers. This is actually where most of Earth's satellites are located, including the International Space Station. So there's a few sources of space debris. One that we would call dead satellites. These are basically satellites that have reached the end of their service life. So either their batteries are dead or a system on board is no longer functioning. Either way, they're no longer operational and they're only orbiting around Earth as a hunk of metal. Next are launch byproducts. So I'm sure you've all seen a launch before, but when satellites are launched into space, they're done so on a vehicle that's actually multiple rockets stacked on top of each other called stages. The first stage is usually the largest, and it launches from the launch pad and gets the payload into space, and is then jettisoned and then falls back to Earth. The second stage is a much smaller rocket, which then ignites and pushes the satellite to a speed that would allow it to maintain an orbit around Earth. This second rocket is then also jettisoned, but it stays in orbit, serving no purpose at all. The second rocket is, excuse me, these things can take anywhere from decades to thousands of years to fall back into the Earth's atmosphere. This is a problem because the longer they stay up there, the higher the risk is of them colliding with other large pieces of debris, such as these dead satellites or other launch byproducts. Um, these things are traveling so fast that when they do collide, they actually vaporize at the point of impact, but the rest of the object shatters into thousands of tiny pieces, effectively creating a high-speed cloud of debris. So why don't we just remove them, right? Well, it's actually incredibly expensive to do so because unlike a normal payload like a satellite or a telescope that people may pay to use where there's a return on investment, um, there is no financial incentive for companies or governments to have a mission with the exclusive purpose of cleaning up space junk. However, if we do nothing, then even if we halted all space operations that contribute to the space debris problem, things will worsen even just on their own due to the inevitable countless collisions that will occur. If this is not controlled and is allowed to compound on itself, it could result in something called the Kessler syndrome, which is actually a theoretical situation wherein there's so much debris orbiting Earth that it would be impossible to launch a rocket and avoid a potentially catastrophic collision, which would render us unable to travel in space at all. So, to conclude, this basically needs to be addressed on a global scale. Space regulations should be put into place requiring the deorbiting capabilities, which is basically it can push itself out of orbit and back into the Earth's atmosphere and burn up, where it can safely burn up at the end of their service life. And a dialogue should be started between the largest spacefaring countries, which are currently us, the US, China, and Russia, to start funding these cleanup operations. Because if we don't, we truly do risk the losing access to space beyond low Earth orbit entirely by means of the Kessler syndrome that we talked about. These are my references. Thank you for listening. I appreciate any response you may have, and I hope you guys have a wonderful break. Thanks.